Welcome to the Hockey Writers Maple Leafs Lounge, a weekly show from our Toronto Maple Leafs writing crew, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, prospects, and much more. From training camp to the playoffs, from draft day to the trade deadline, our team covers everything that happens with the blue and white. Come on in and pull up a chair. Welcome to the Maple Leafs Lounge.
Hello and welcome back to the Maple Leafs Lounge. I am your host, Peter Baracchini, and once again, as always, I am joined by my colleague over at the Hockey Writers, Alex Hobson. Alex, buddy, how are you doing, man?
I'm okay. If you're a regular watcher of the show, you know that normally when we're recording, I've got a nice little brown door and a little basketball net hung up on the door behind me. I had to change my setup because my light has a bulb that burned out. And for whatever reason, it cast a nice little gleam of light right down the middle of my face. So I'm currently crammed into the corner of my room right now because this is about all I can do for a short-term fix. So it wouldn't be an episode of this without any technical issues beforehand. Obviously, if you're watching, you don't get to see any of that beforehand, but we deal with it quite a bit. So other than that, I'm doing great, though. I'm doing great. How about you, Peter?
Doing great, man. Holiday season is around the corner. And as always, a lot of Maple Leaf talk. And I understand that technical difficulties are a thing. And we totally get that. It's fun. What fun would a show be without technical difficulties,
It would be a lot more fun without them, I think, honestly.
Exactly. And before we start off the show, a word from our sponsor. If you're looking for Maple Leafs tickets without having to pay those pesky checkout fees, try Ticket IQ. Ticket IQ has zero fees and will save you 10 to 20% versus sites like StubHub. Believe me, it's the best out there, and it's nice to know what you're going to pay. The price you see is the price you pay. Plus, Ticket IQ gives each ticket an A to F rating based on how good of a deal it is, so it takes the guesswork out of ticket buying. Once again, that's ticketiq.com. Look in the description for an app download link so you can get started browsing the best deals on tickets. As we kick off the show, what better way than to start off with Mitch Marner? Obviously, last week when we talked, he set the Maple Leafs record for point streak, and he just continues to do it again. Already continuing to roll 22-game point streak for Mitch Marner at this point right now. Alex, what can you say about Mitch right now? He's just on an absolute heater right now. There just seems no stop to his game right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's been absolutely phenomenal. And the longer he continues this streak, the more we're going to be coming back here on Sundays and Mondays and having the exact same conversation again. We're going to run out of talking points, plain and simple.
Yeah.
But you know what? I said it last week, and I've said it on the 6 and the 6 podcast, and I say it on Twitter. I say it everywhere. Mitch Marner is a top 5 most entertaining player to watch in the entire league when he's on his game. And, we're beyond the point of seeing, the Mitch Marner that can make some fancy passing plays and put up 2 assists in a game and looks really good. Like, this guy seems to have somehow found another gear, which is even beyond what he found last year. And, he showed it last season with his 35 goals. Obviously, he took a step forward in that regard last year. But even this season, you combine the playmaking with the goal scoring, with the defensive play, the play away from the puck, and he's somehow getting better. And it's at a point where, every month of October, we talk about how Mitch Marner is overpaid at $10.6 million. He's not playing like a $10 million player. I'd say right now he's playing like a $12 million player. And I think the goal that perfectly highlights how good Mitch Marner's been was his goal from the other night. I want to say it was against the Stars, where he was knocked over in the corner and he made that pass out front to Tavares on his butt.
Kings.
That was against the Kings. Okay,
yes.
My bad. It was one of the shutouts. Mm-hmm. I just knew it was a shutout. That's all I could remember. But he made that pass on his butt. They tried clearing the puck, passed it back into the zone. He took it and just took a slap shot, which I never see from Mitch Marner. So he's finding different ways to contribute and finding different ways to shed light on his skills and play to the best of his abilities. And it's just been amazing seeing how much better he's been able to get over this past month.
Yeah, you talk about the two-way play that he's like, we've always known Mitch Marner as a two-way kind of player, but he just seems more dynamic or more intense when pursuing the puck, getting into lanes. And you mentioned, Dallas Stars, that game where, He was blocking shots left, right, and center, getting into the lanes without a broken stick and just doing the little things that'll help the team win. And the fact that it's combined with the defensive play, with his production, it's just absolutely phenomenal what he's able to accomplish right now. And we're going to get to another player that seems to have taken another step later on in the show. But I agree. It seems like, this is peak Mitch Marner, but at some point, if he continues to top this season somehow or this stretch, we're going to talk about how that's peak Mitch Marner and how there's going to be another peak and another level to his game that is just going to be awe-inspiring at this point. And
I'm sorry, I just want to say I'm glad that you mentioned the shot block against Dallas, because I remember when they got that 4-minute penalty kill for the Leafs, I guess, I was thinking there's absolutely no way they're getting through this without at least one goal.
Oh yeah.
And when it turned into the 5-on-3, and then when Marner broke his stick and the announcers were joking around saying, oh, it's like now it's 5-on-2.5. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, this is done. Like, there's so much going wrong right now. There's no chance they're going to recover from this. And, for all the people who see Mitch Marner do the crazy things that he does offensively and then say, okay, well, let's see him play some defense now, or, let's see him throw his body in front of a shot or lay a big hit. I mean, we saw most of those things happen on that penalty kill. He blocked several shots. He was able to smother them even without a stick. And it like, for a guy like myself, and I know you have in the past too, who have been supremely critical of Marner when he's not on his game and in his own head and doesn't look like himself, this is the best version of Mitch Marner that we have ever seen, I think, to this point.
Absolutely. And just by comparison and looking at the numbers right now, Mitch Marner, since the longest point streak since 87-88, he is up there with, some pretty impressive names: Steve Yzerman, Wayne Gretzky, Brett Hall, Matt Sundin, and Mario Lemieux. So he's up there with some pretty great names for longest point streaks. Will he get to Mario Lemieux's 46 games? And I believe Wayne Gretzky had a 51 game point streak at some point before that. Who knows? But as of right now, over the last 20 seasons, only 2 players have had longer point streaks than Mitch Marner. And that was Sidney Crosby with 25 back in November 5th to December 28th in 2010, and Patrick Kane from October 17th to December 13th in 2015. So Patrick Kane was already doing this kind of thing beforehand. Maple Leafs in 2015 didn't look that great because that was the, Connor McDavid draft year. Mitch Marner gets taken 4th overall. We know how well that played out for the Maple Leafs, and that was from NHL Public Relations, the stat that I mentioned right there. If you want to check out that tweet, go right ahead, because that is a very impressive list for Mitch Marner to be a part of. Moving on to our next topic. We started off with the highs, but now we go to the lows, and it's just absolutely, gut-wrenching to see another injury to Nick Robertson. I don't know what else you could say at this point about the kid. He's just a dynamic goal scorer, in your face offensive talent. And once again, he is out for a significant period of time. Believe it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks, suffering a shoulder injury in that game against the Los Angeles Kings. Alex, just what can you say about this at this point? It's like he can't catch a break.
Yeah, in Robertson's case, it sucks because it seems like every single time he gets an opportunity where he really has a chance to run and make a name for himself in the NHL, he gets hurt. And, these are mostly, I don't think we can really say this guy's made of glass, et cetera, because a lot of these injuries have been freak accidents and, poorly timed hits, things like that. And, even the one against the Kings, I saw Leaf fans were mad at Matt Roy for that whole hit right there. I personally think that was just a matter of a guy who's 6'4" battling against a guy who's 5'10". And, for Robertson it wasn't a dirty or a malicious hit. I think they just got tangled up. Robertson, being shorter and smaller overall than Roy is, got the wrong end of it. And it was just a terrible way for him to land. And it sucks because, I've talked multiple times on this show about how if you're going to play Robertson in the NHL, you got to give him a chance to run with a role in the second line or somewhere where he can succeed offensively for like 10 games or something like that. And with the way that the top 6 is now, with Calle Jarnkrok being out with an injury as well, Robertson was finally going to get that opportunity to get 10 games or so of the top 6 and run with it, see what he can do, see what he's made of. And he's not going to get that opportunity now because he's hurt. And the prognosis on it is better than what I thought. I think I read that he was supposed to return in maybe 6 to 8 weeks or something.
Yeah,
I
was going
originally
to do therapy as opposed to doing surgery.
Right. And I originally thought that the timeline was going to be similar to Jake Muzzin, like this guy's out until February, March, something like that. But it is encouraging to see that he's only out for 6 to 8 weeks, but it still couldn't have come at a worse time. So you got to feel bad for the kid.
Yeah, and just overall, his injury history has just been just all over the place. I mean, there was the 8 to 10 months where he had the fractured fibula previously last season, and then in his very first shift, in his very first regular season game, suffers another injury 2 minutes into his shift, and it's just like he cannot catch a break. I mean, it's disappointing to see because when, like you said, whenever he gets an opportunity to run away with the chance, it looks like he's playing relatively well, getting those chances, getting those extra minutes that they want to see him in more of an elevated role. And then all of a sudden it just comes crashing down on him. And it absolutely is tough to see, especially with one of the Maple Leafs top prospects right now. And, you know, you got to wonder if, obviously injuries were a concern for Nick Robertson. You don't want to say, hey, are we going to give up on him? But is not necessarily time running out on Nick Robertson because of it, not necessarily because of his play, but because of injury concerns.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of tough to say in that sense because, you know, he's had such bad luck overall. And, I think in the end, you know, it's just going to be a matter of getting him back into a role that he can succeed in whenever he's ready. Like you said, it's an unfortunate situation because the injuries always seem to come at the worst time. But yeah, hopefully they can find a spot for him when he gets back. And if he does have that spot, then, you know, maybe he gets a chance to run with it. Maybe he makes another late claim to earn himself that spot.
And even though he only has 5 points in 15 games, when Nick Robertson is on his game, he is absolutely effective. And we wish him a speedy recovery and hope that he comes back. Obviously, it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks, but if he's able to come back sooner than expected, that's going to be a really great, you know, sign for him and for this Maple Leafs team, because he looks like he was about to carve his way into the NHL. To cap off, or not to cap off, but for the midway point of the show, once again, this episode is also brought to you by themorningskate.io, a daily newsletter delivered to your inbox Monday to Friday, jammed packed with the best hockey stuff on the planet. It is your daily dose of NHL news, rumors, histories, funnies, quizzes, you name it. You will get all of that from the terrific hockey writing, or from the terrific writing staff over at the Hockey Writers. Fumbled a little bit there. All you will have to do is just put your email in the link in the description below, and you will get the newsletter in your inbox every single morning. As we started off with the show with Mitch Marner, and we talked about a player that's, you know, gaining some more momentum and getting a new, you know, sense of momentum in his game and gaining more traction as an elite level player in this league, William Nylander. We're going to talk about him because he had an absolute amazing night against the Calgary Flames. 5 points. I believe that is a career high for him. A part of every single goal for the Maple Leafs in that overtime game, or overtime win against the Flames. Alex, what do you make of that game for Nylander, and what do you make of his potential run at being labeled as, or finally being labeled as, one of those elite wingers that isn't just flying under the radar?
First of all, I think it's funny that we all got on Nylander's case back in 2018-19 for holding out for the first couple months of the season and getting that $6.9 million when at this point in his career, I would say he's probably a $9 million player. That's how good he is. And in the end, you know, maybe that holdout was not good for the Maple Leafs, obviously, and not good for him in that specific season. But who knows? Maybe the Leafs got off easy, only giving him $6.9 million and not more than more of what his asking price would have been. But you know, I think the funniest part about Marner and Nylander, and actually I won't say the funniest part, but the way that you differentiate those two guys, because they're both great players and they're both, I would say, probably pass first players, but both guys who are capable of scoring goals as well. They're similar, but they're also very different in different ways. And, you know, when I say that, I mean, Mitch Marner, you know, we've talked about it on the show before. He's He's a Toronto boy. He grew up a Leafs fan. He obviously went through a bit of a contract situation himself. He's on the top line. He's one of the main faces of the Toronto Maple Leafs for marketing purposes. You see all the advertisements and stuff that he does and the sponsorships that he has. And Mitch Marner thrives on being the center of attention. He wants to be the guy that helps bring a cup back to Toronto. He wants to be one of those top players. Nylander, I find he does better when people are criticizing him, when people are talking about him in a negative way, and when he's not the center of attention. I always hear people get on Sheldon Keefe because whenever the Leafs need a shakeup, his number one move is always to put Nylander on the third line or something. And I think Nylander likes that. I think we've read about it in the press before. Nylander likes being criticized and he likes being told what to do better and pushed, like you said. And, with all this, Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews hype and, Nylander is just sort of flying under the radar. Everyone's talking about Mitch Marner's 22-game point streak, as they should be. But Nylander this entire time has just been flying under the radar. The media is not really giving him all that much attention. Like he's playing well defensively as well. It's funny how there's two guys here who are, putting up very similar totals. They're both having great seasons, yet Nylander's is all because the media is not focusing on him. The media is focusing on all the other storylines in Toronto. Whereas for Mitch Marner, he thrives on being the center of attention like that. So they're both talented players and they both come from very different backgrounds. So it's kind of funny in that sense.
Third in Maple Leaf scoring, currently 2 behind Mitch Marner, but it's interesting that you note about his season because he's on pace for 48 goals, closing in on that 50 goal mark, and 93 points. Both would be career bests for Nylander. And Luke Fox from Sportsnet did a recap of Nylander's game, and Sheldon Keefe had this comment to say about Nylander. He's maturing. Over time, you get sick of having the coach in your ear all the time, and you want to get that sorted out yourself. The fact that Nylander right now isn't relying on a coach to try and get him into a groove and be consistent with his play, he's doing it on his own. And every single time you see like a bad shift from Nylander, he comes back and he comes out flying. And everyone's going to pin the point the factor that, he was bad defensively before. He doesn't go into the corner. He doesn't make hits. Well, yeah, that is true. He doesn't make hits, but the fact that he's going in on the forecheck and using his speed and gaining excellent body positioning, that is how William Nylander thrives in gaining offensive zone time, regaining puck possession, and then going on the attack. That is how he thrives in every single situation that he's in. And even Nylander himself, or I believe it was Keefe, who also said, Willie has the potential to be in that top tier. Austin and Mitch have really established themselves in the exclusive top tier of the league. Willie should be right there hanging with those guys. He's pushing himself and they're all pushing each other, which is how that group can get to greater heights. And again, that is from Luke Fox's piece. William Nylander's Maple Leafs Nylander moves closer to superstardom with 5-point night and win.
Peter, I'm glad that you mentioned that quote, specifically the part where he was like, you get sick of having the coach in your ear. Mm-hmm. So
that's
on that note, I want to clarify that if that quote right there about not having the coach in your ear came from Sheldon Keefe, not William Nylander. If you were scrolling Twitter today and you saw Luke Fox's tweet, he tweeted it leading off with that quote, but didn't say who said it. Mm-hmm. Like all due respect to Luke Fox, he's a great writer, but he knew exactly what he was doing, not signing off who actually said that because, everybody, if that quote came out and it was Nylander that said, you get sick of having the coach in your ear, there'd be all these questions about, is William Nylander impossible to coach? Does he respect his coach situation? Yeah, exactly. So just as a disclaimer, if you scrolled past that tweet today and you saw that quote and didn't actually click on the article, that was Sheldon Keefe that said that, not William Nylander.
Yeah, and the fact that Sheldon Keefe said that shows that he's probably gaining more faith in William Nylander because even last year he started putting him on the PK, which is that next step to say, hey, if you could do well in a penalty kill situation, I'm going to give you more time. I'm going to trust you even more. Nylander has earned that trust from Sheldon Keefe, and Sheldon Keefe, the whole entire trust factor has been reciprocated. They're both gaining it from player to coach and coach to player. So the fact that, like you said, William Nylander's season has gone very much unnoticed because of Mitch Marner's point streak, but what he's done at this point should not be counted out because he's putting up a very great season right now. And, it's a three-way battle for like tops in team scoring right now. So it could either come down to Marner, Matthews, or Nylander. And the fact that Nylander is there, not just as, the 4 or 5 guy, he's an elite level player right now. And I think everyone should start taking note about that when they watch him play, because he's definitely making a factor every time he's on the ice. To end off this episode of Maple Leafs Lounge, we're just going to have a little bit of fun. Obviously, as I mentioned off the top of the show, the holiday season is around the corner. And, what better way than to talk about, a wish list for the Maple Leafs to ask for Santa Claus. So, Alex, I'm going to start off with you. Name one thing that the Maple Leafs have or should get if they got an early Christmas present, or if there's something else that the Maple Leafs would want to ask Santa Claus for. What would it be for this season?
So when you say ask Santa for something, does it have to be like a physical something coming from outside of the organization? Or like, when you were little and your mom was like, for Christmas, I really just want more help around the house, like something internal. Like, can it be either of those, or does it have to be something coming in from the organization?
You know what?
I got two different
I'm going to
answers.
leave it open up.
Okay, because, as much as I want to say a top 6 winger or a shutdown defenseman or something that the Leafs could need, I really think what they need this season more than anything else is continued consistency from the goal crease. We've mentioned it on the show before. We've talked in the past about how the Leafs, for a long time, at least in the Marner and Matthews era, a lot of the time they had one really good goalie and one just absolutely awful goalie. And what that resulted in was the main goalie, the starting goalie, getting leaned on way, way too much. And then it sort of falling apart in the playoffs. And I'm not blaming the playoffs on just the goaltending, but, the Leafs have never really had a balanced tandem where you can really rely on both guys. And I think so far, based on what we've seen, Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov can be that tandem. Now, I was saying yesterday that Matt Murray, the great thing about him playing in front of a good team is, these past couple of games, that 44 save shutout, he's played really well and he's bailed the Leafs out of some tough situations. So on the off night where he does have a bad game, like the game on Saturday against Calgary, the Leafs are a good team. They can bail him out. They could score their way out of the troubles. And I think that the best thing for this tandem, and specifically for Matt Murray, would be consistency and reliability on both of them, so that you can keep their workloads down, ideally having them start at like on a 40-40 basis, or maybe like a 50-30 kind of thing, I think would be the best thing for this team this year. I think they need stability and consistency from the goaltenders all year. And I think that'd be the perfect gift.
That is a great one. And I am coming out with a piece, and I do talk about Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov in regards to 3 early Christmas gifts for the Maple Leafs this year. And, you got to pick that as one, because they have just been absolutely fantastic. For me, my Christmas wish list, or my one thing for the Maple Leafs this season, is a clean bill of health. And I think you know where I'm going with this right now. Obviously, from the beginning of training camp to October to November, it seems like it was just been an injury after injury after injury piling up. It started off with, the surgeries to, or the injuries to Pierre Engvall and Timothy Liljegren, then Jake Muzzin. And then we found out about his neck injury a few games into the season, which was very unfortunate. Then Morgan Riley went down, then TJ Brody and Calle Yarncroke. And the list just goes on and on and on. And even now, Victor Mete, Jordy Ben,
Nick Robertson,
exactly. Obviously injuries happen. They always happen, but it seems like it's happening in bunches right now, or like every week or so. So I just want the Maple Leafs to have a clean bill of health in the second half, or after, or to this point right now, because when it comes down to the grind down the stretch of the season, it's going to get a little bit more intense, a little bit more heated. You want to be prepared for the playoffs. You want to go in 120% health wise, so that way you're ready for the long run. And the way that they're playing right now, they are capable of making a deep run, because now, as you mentioned, they have that deep dynamic tandem in net. Defense is stepping up. The offensive players, or the top players, are playing like top players right now. Depth could be a little bit more, but you know what? I'm not going to nitpick right now. if they're able to stay healthy from top to bottom of the roster when everyone comes back and they maintain that, this is a very dangerous team. They're second in the Atlantic Division right now, third overall in points percentage in the league. And if they're doing this without their top defender, they did this without TJ Brody. They're doing this without, and even Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov, they went down with injuries too. So everybody was affected. If they can stay healthy, that is just going to be the most important thing for me. I could have picked something else, but that was my main sticking point right now. And that is it for this episode of Maple Leafs Lounge. Once again, be sure to check out ticketiq.com for great rates on tickets without any checkout fees or anything else. Go to ticketiq.com or look in the description for an app download link below. And don't forget to check out or sign up for morningskate.io, the great newsletter brought to you by the terrific writing staff over at the Hockey Writers. Once again, that's it for this episode. For Alex Hobson, I'm Peter Baracchini, and we'll see you next time.